All right, so welcome to another episode of Closers Are Losers. I am here, chairman and founder of 7th Level, here with my business partner, CEO, and host as well, Matt Ryder. Attention, salute the man, the myth, the legend, all the way down in our Sydney, Australia office. Thanks for being on, Matt. What's going on? I just feel we just got off a meeting together. Now we're back on a podcast together. What's going on?
We are. I have some good news. We're opening up another office in Perth. So well done.
You're opening? I did not know that. When are we opening an office in Perth?
We're just looking at the moment. So.
Really? And who are we going to put in Perth?
A lot of the finance teams in Perth.
Okay, so we're going to open up an office for the finance team. I think we got at least one salesperson in Perth.
Yeah, I got Dan. Dan's over there.
So we're going to put the finance team in Perth.
Also, one of our setters is there.
Okay.
There's about 5.
I never thought there would be a day where we would start branching out into Perth, Australia, but that day is possibly here. We're going to put the finance team in Perth on the other side of the world. All right.
Why not? Treat yourself.
Why not? Why not? Tricks are for kids. All right. So today I want to really talk about, we get a lot of questions about, Jeremy, Matt, what is the difference between objection prevention compared to objection handling? Like, how does that even work? I see a lot of salespeople, and this is true. Like when I was in my sales career, people would always be like, "Oh my gosh, you're selling so much. Like, what's your secret to overcome objections?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't really get that many objections." They're like, "What? What do you mean you don't get really a lot of objections?" I'm like, "Well, I try to prevent them before they get in their brain." And that's when I came up with this concept, like, "Oh, well, objection prevention, right?" Because we're still, and we'll talk about objection prevention in a second. That doesn't mean you're never going to get an objection. Can you reduce 50%, 60% of the objections you're getting, maybe even 70%? Yes, if you have the right skills.
Okay, so let me ask you a question on that. Why is most of the sales industry centered around handling objections? I mean, there are whole books and genres and programs out there on that sort of specifically, but like, why do you think that's happened as opposed to people talking about just not getting them in the first place?
Because I think the majority of sales training out there, 99%, I've gone through every course. I mean, I've been through like 250 some courses just myself, 1,400 books, anyways, to give you a little bit of knowledge. But typically most sales training out there, because it works against human behavior, actually triggers the objections you get. Okay. It's not like the prospect sitting there waiting to pounce on you. When you get on that call, like, bam, I'm just going to pounce on you. You're saying something, or you're not asking the right questions that's triggering uncertainty in their mind, which triggers them to throw out objections or go into fight or flight.
Could you give me like a tangible example of something that you'd mean by like something that a regular salesperson would say, or a non-NEPQ trained salesperson that would trigger an objection downstream? Because they might be separated by 40 minutes. So yeah. it's hard for people to see that.
Let's talk about the beginning, the middle, the end. I'll just give you an example. Let's say that you're cold calling. What's the average salesperson say on a cold call? Hi, hey, John. Hey, John, this is Jeremy Miner with XYZ company. How you doing today? Something like that. Yeah. Or, hey, John, this is Jeremy Miner with XYZ company. Hey, the reason why I called you was, and because a prospect hears that same approach, it's Jeremy Miner. I'm calling from XYZ. The reason why I called you was, or Matt Ryder.
You just get put into a box.
Company. Do you have 2 minutes? I can talk to you about what we have to offer. You sound like everybody else. You sound like a scripted telemarketer going through the motions, and it automatically triggers a prospect to go into fight or flight mode. You could literally be calling from the state lottery. Hey, it's Jeremy Miner from the state lottery. The reason why I called you was you just won $3 billion, and it would still be a click because you sound like everybody else. So that triggers sales resistance automatically that you're now having to overcome, but you're the one that triggered that. That's an example of triggering an objection in the very beginning.
And how do you think sales resistance manifests itself throughout the call? Like I guess what are some of the signs and symptoms that you're really sort of creating that?
Well, as far as signs and symptoms that you can notice in the prospect, let's say that you're on Zoom. I was just on an inner circle training call with their clients, and this one guy we were doing a call review, and it was an inbound lead. So I could see the client and the salesperson on Zoom watching what they were doing. And the guy, the salesperson got on there. Hey, John. Hey, great for you to be on here. I'm so excited that you're on here. How are you doing today? And instantly when he said, how are you doing today? Which I know everybody thinks is innocent. You know what the prospect did? Yeah, I'm doing good. Immediately, body language completely changed, triggered sales resistance just by asking, how are you doing today? Because why? Because every salesperson that's ever tried to sell anything immediately opens up with,
feels like he's about to be sold.
Today? Exactly. So he immediately triggered the prospect to just go, and he didn't go into fight or flight mode. He just went like, yeah, doing good. Like,
apathetic. I don't really want to be here anymore.
I don't want to be here anymore. So that's a triggering effect there. So just that question, how's your day going? Or do you have 2 minutes? Here's another one I see. It's so bad. Hey, John, I know you don't have a lot of time, but do you have 2 minutes? I can talk to you about our XYZ product and I know what it can do for you. Well, first of all, nobody believes you're really only going to take 2 minutes of their damn time. So you're like lying. And so they automatically lose trust.
Starting off with the wrong foot. Yeah.
You're starting off with the horrible foot. So you're triggering that resistance in the very beginning. That's one thing. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I think the way that I thought of when I was first learning it, and this is one of the ways that I explain it to some of our newer members, is sales resistance is something that once you trigger it, you never get it back.
Yeah.
So if you've got a graph of say time on the x-axis and sales resistance on the y-axis, the vertical one, every time you spike something, like I think one of the things that really triggers sales resistance is that assumptive languaging, but also when a prospect has to say, well, like I said, because you're not listening, you know, which means that you're not probing and clarifying effectively.
You're asking tonality. Basically the same. You're asking a question that they just answered previously is what you're saying. So they're like, well, like I said.
Yeah. You get that little tick when you do an assumptive language. Hey, so, on the call today, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out if we're a good fit for you. And, and at the end of the call, I'm going to ask you to make a decision. Now, it can be yes or no. That kind of crap at the beginning of a call, again, a big tick of sales, and you never get that back. And so what I always think is at the presentation stage, you're going to get a natural uptick in sales resistance anyway, because you're now presenting an offer. So no matter how good you are and how good you've been, they now realize that they're being sold something, right?
They know they're going to have money, right?
Exactly.
Like,
so
yeah.
So my goal is to keep that ticker as low as possible throughout it, knowing that I have an uptick, because if I hit if I have too many upticks, I never goes back down. Yeah, and so when I do present, it's too high.
Yeah. So if you're on this field right here, and let's say your presentation, you're going to get the uptick here. If you're already here, because you've already triggered so much, it's over.
Yeah. It's a moonshot.
You're still
no good.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of how my brain thinks of it. And so when I was learning an EPQ, and I'm still learning it, to be honest, but when I was sort of really getting in the trenches of it, my goal was like, well, how do I just look at everything that I'm saying and just reduce those friction points? Those are the points that I'm going to really get it. And I listen to my calls and then kind of do it that way. I found that just by doing that, I got less objections. Yeah,
so true. I mean, it's little wording. Like, I'll give you another example. Let's say that you're more of in a B2B complex sound environment. You've had a first call discovery call with like a C-level executive. Let's say you've got a demo, you've already done a demo with the C-level executive, and let's say the head of IT or whatever you're selling, just depends on what you're selling. And then you're moving on to, let's say, a third call proposal. And let's say that you call, they miss the time of the proposal, and then you email them back, hey, John, we had this appointment to go over the proposal. I'm just checking in, or I'm just following up. When you say I'm just following up to see what you thought about the proposal, I'm just checking in, you might as well be saying, I'm just here to collect your money, because that's what the prospect hears and interprets. I'm just checking in and I'm just following up, because every salesperson that's ever tried to sell them something use those two words all of the time. So instead, we want to relanguage it. I just had time to get back to you. It implies that you're busy. You've got other clients, right? I'm not checking in. I'm not following up. I'm getting back to you to see what your thoughts were on the proposal. Is more direct and it's more realistic, and it's away from sounding like everybody else.
And what was the thing that led you to focus on more objection prevention rather than overcoming objections like the rest of the industry does?
Well, in college, when I was going through like behavioral science and human psychology, there was this book that I read. It's some like obscure like theologian that's not like a sales type of person. I don't even remember his name. I have to go back and look through all my stuff. But he was talking about how he was talking about fight or flight mode. So it was all
Okay.
about fight or flight mode and how I think it's the reptilian brain and how it reacts and like our instincts to survive. And
Yep.
like when we're scared of things, it triggers us to react a certain way. And I'm like, okay, how would that work with like things I'm saying? Like if I say even the words follow up or checking, like I started to realize that everybody was saying the same words. And so like if I sound like everybody else, they associate me with everybody else and all these negative experiences they've had with pushy, overzealous salespeople. So they put me in that same category. And now I'm trying to compete with that the whole time. How do I reduce that where I don't have to compete with that like you? So when I started my first job selling home security systems door to door, after a couple months, I started to realize that like looking really nice, like everybody else did, and like gold change, nice watches, like really nice clothes, I looked like a salesperson. So I'm like, how do I not look like a salesperson? Now, I don't mean by like, wear overalls or, a skateboarder, like pants down to my, down to my butt.
Have a wrench with you. I'm just a local mechanic.
Like, how do I blend in where they have more trust? And that's where I came up with the idea when I was selling door to door, my first job, to wear a construction vest. So I'd wear one of the lime green ones when those came out, one of the orange ones. I would carry around like a clipboard, like a meter reader. I would put a tape measure on the side because, when you measure out where their panels and all their alarm system goes, you have to measure it out. So that makes sense to have a tape measure there, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like I was knocking on the door.
Were you wearing white New Balance shoes that you bought from Costco?
I did wear the grandpa white Balance new shoes because I wanted to be as boring as possible, less flashy as possible. It's like pulling up with the Lambo, knocking on their door with a nice suit. It's like you're just might as well say salesman 101, right? I wore like a $10 Walmart watch, just like very cheap, no jewelry, nothing, just a polo like this, very basic, construction vest. So when they came to the door, there was no resistance. Like they thought I was either maybe reading their meter, maybe a construction guy telling them, watch out, your kids are going to fall in the hole over there. Like there was just no resistance. So I never competed with that in the first 30 seconds to a minute, whereas everybody else that was fancy was automatically competing with resistance the first 10 seconds. So that's kind of where I started getting the concept of like, I want to reduce all sales resistance.
Yeah.
So I just don't have objections, and it makes selling much easier.
Now, do you think that there is, I guess, a legitimate place for? Well, I guess let me rephrase the question. What is more productive for a newer salesperson? Learning how to overcome or learning how to prevent? Like, if you can only focus on one thing, like which one would you choose?
I think brand new salespeople are going to have to learn how to overcome objections more initially because they're not going to be good enough in the very beginning to prevent most of them from happening. Right.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that more? Like why wouldn't they be good enough?
Because they're not going to have every single question we teach them memorized in the very beginning. They're not going to have the tonality down to 100%. Right.
Okay.
So they're still going to trigger they can even take the same question we're teaching them, but in the beginning where they're learning advanced tonality, it's going to come out weird and awkward.
Yeah.
And it's going to trigger an objection. So in the beginning, that's why we have our objection obliteration course that they go through as well, because we're going to teach them how to handle pretty much any objection they're ever going to hear, why they get even better at preventing most of them from happening, which that makes selling really fun at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's where my head goes as well. It's like everyone thinks that they need objection handling. And I think in the beginning, it's one of the things that people do need to work on because I think objection handling is an easier skill than what people think.
Yeah.
I don't think it's particularly difficult to overcome objections. I think the reason that people stumble is because they don't have a plan.
Yeah. Wing it.
Yeah, they just wing it. There's no scripting, right? Whereas objection handling, and this is my perspective, and you can let me know yours. I think objection handling is actually the part where you're almost telling, not selling. Like you are actually just like you are like sort of taking them down a pathway. And your job is to keep them on that pathway because you have specific things that you need to get. So it's a less conversational form. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself well, but it's very process driven when you know how to do it. And your job is to kind of like get them through the process. And if you do it, most of the time it works out well.
Well, it's right. It's first of all, it's clarifying what the objection even means. Because if somebody says it's too expensive, well, that could mean several different things. Expensive to what? Expensive to maybe another vendor offered them a cheaper price.
Yeah.
Expensive to who their current company is. Expensive because they don't have the money. It could mean different things. So we have to clarify what the objection actually means, what they mean,
Yeah.
and then discuss that. And then typically we want to ask certain questions that allow them to overcome that. And then we have to loop back around to the close, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of people, they get really confused, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this when someone gives you 3 or 4 objections at once. Like, hey, Jeremy, this sounds really, really good, and I'm 100% in. I just need to run it by my CMO, make sure I can check my finances and run it by the accountant, and just kind of overall sit on this for about the next, day or two. So what do we do next from here? Sort of, connect, and you send me an email or...
Yeah. So with that, what I would hear, so if they said like, hey, I really need to set on this, some time to think about it. Like, we got to see the budget. I've got to talk to my CMO, blah, 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 blah. The first thing that's going to enter my mind, because that's obviously a B2B deal, is I'm going to focus on the CMO. I'm going to focus on the other decision makers first. So that's where I'm going to go first. And then after I find out what they mean by talking with the CMO, how the CMO feels about it, then I'm going to say, now, a minute ago, you mentioned that to see if you even have the budget. Then I'm going to focus on the budget objections, because those are the actual 2 objections you just mentioned, not that I need to set on it, think it over, because that, as you know, is not a real objection. They just said that because they obviously have some concerns, and you told me that are 2 concerns.
That's a really important point there that Jeremy pointed out, where it's like he would hear all of them. Because what a lot of salespeople do, from what I hear from training people, is that they would just pick up on the last one the person said, and then they would try and handle that instead of taking all the information. Mm-hmm. Like for me, because I'm much more of a B2C realm, you go CMO partner first. I always go money first, always.
Yeah, because I know if you can't get the other decision makers on board, it doesn't matter if this one decision maker can get the funds. If the others are not on board, it's not happening.
Yeah. And which for a B2C or a more complex selling environment, that's the way to do it. For me, like most of my stuff has just been like one dude, he has to talk to his wife. So I'll handle money first, and then from there I'll handle wife. But like, again, like we're going through a deliberate process based on the triaging of information that we've been given. And that's a really important concept that people need to understand. Like, handle the objections strategically, like one by one. And the biggest thing that I see is that people will get partway through, say, the money side. So they'll be 3/4 of the way, and then the person will go, yeah, I just need to speak to my partner and this. And instead of finishing the money, they'll then see a shiny object of partner. They'll then go to partner.
Like a dog that like throws the bone, and then they go after that.
And they never resolved the first one. So then like they haven't actually gotten to the point where it's like, okay, so that works in your current budgetary constraints. If I did 3 payments of $5,000, 30 days apart, that would work for you. Okay, cool. How would you like to proceed from here? I just remember my partner. Okay, cool. And if your partner was here, then you can go through your process, right? Like, you got to go through your process.
Yeah, you have to have a process. If you don't have a process, you're just winging it and hoping and praying something you're going to say is going to cause them to buy, which it will every once in a while. But if you want to make consistent sale after consistent sale after consistent sale without a process, it just won't work, right? And that's why you go through so many slumps. I see so many salespeople, outside of our training that just, 1 month they make 10 grand a month in commissions. The next month it's 4. The next month it's 12. The next month it's 6. It's like they're up and down. It's like 1 month they were just better at winging it. Then the next month they were just not as good at winging it, right? You don't want to wing it.
Yeah.
No consistency. You have no duplication. You don't have any predictability with what you're going to do.
Yeah. Me and you had a chat about it on the phone the other day. And I said, if your process was good, it wouldn't matter if you're hungover and your wife just left you, you'd still make sales.
Yeah, 100%. Because you're it's almost like you've become so neutral that your emotions are neutral. At least that's what I get. I'm just like, well, nothing I can do about it.
Actually, I'd love to hear you explain, when you say neutral, I think a lot of people mistake that for passive. And I'd love to hear like that, but then also, how does that translate to you? Like, how does your, I don't want to say mindset, but like tonality or your intention change when you're handling objections? Like, do you?
Yeah, because in my mind, you've got assumptive, neutral, passive.
Okay.
Assumptive, neutral, passive. Passive is like you're way down here, right? You're just letting them throw you around. You're just like, they're just kicking you in the face and you just take it. It's like you're doing free consulting. That's passive. Assumptive is you're like, it's going to work for you. I'm so excited you're on here at the call. You're like overly assumptive when you have no trust, nothing there.
Yep.
Neutral is you're not quite sure you can even help you because you don't know enough about their situation. I'm just right in the middle. I'm neutral. Now, as the call progresses, as that sales process goes through, let's B2B or B2C, I can become a little bit more assumptive as I go along after I have a lot more trust built in there and credibility. But if you start off being extremely assumptive in the beginning without trust and credibility, you're going to trigger a lot of sales resistance for sure. But you can't be passive either. Like you can't just let them kick you in the face, do free consulting, take their calls on Sunday night at 9 p.m. You're not going to make any money that way either. You have to be right in the middle.
Okay. And so how does that change at all? Like when you go into objection handling, do you become more forthright? Do you become a little bit more,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because at that point, I already have trust and credibility. So I get really real with them. I get real with them like, hey, just, I'm on the same team. I'm here with you, mano to mano. I'm on the same team. Off the record, what's really holding you back? See, that's not very neutral. That's not very passive. Like I'm right there in the grill, but I'm showing empathy. Like I'm on your team.
Yeah. Oh, one of our inner circle members, Brian Choi, used that exact thing. Because I told it to him on Inner Circle, and then he went the next day and had an objection. The guy was just going forever, and he leaned into that exact same thing. And the guy goes, "Oh man, I'm just really scared." It's okay, man. I'm here for you. And then sold him. Piff, paid in full, good to go.
Tell him to go post that Sales Revolution.
He did. Okay. There's so many testimonials in there. You wouldn't.
I know we have too many. But if I don't see 30 a day, I get upset.
All right, cool. So take home points for the people today. What are some of the tips and tricks that you can give people? Just sort of sum it up in 2 or 3 points as to best ways to prevent objections and what are the systems that they need to overcome.
Yeah, let's start. I mean, the best way to prevent objections, you're gonna have to learn NEPQ. I mean, I've been through every program there is in the book, so have you. But with NEPQ, neuroemotional persuasion questions, you're going to reduce that resistance. Like Matt's talking about, you're going to come across more neutral and unbiased and unattached. You're detached, and they can tell you are detached. Experts are detached. They do not need your money. They do not need you to buy because they already have everybody else buying and sending the money because of the results they get them. Experts are detached. Salespeople who are not very successful or attached because they need the money, and people can tell you need it. And it's like, get rid of the commission breath. They can smell it from like 10 miles away. So first of all, you got to get rid of the commission breath. You got to start thinking, hey, I'm a problem finder. I'm a problem solver. I'm here to see if I can help these people get where they want to go solve their problems. Now, do you know you can? More than likely, yes, right? That's why they respond to an ad. That's why they book on your calendar. That's why they're an outbound lead, inbound lead, even cold calling. The people you're targeting by cold calling probably have the problems that your solution solves. Otherwise, you would never even call them, right? Yep. So you got to start thinking outside of the box. Like you're looking for, what problems does this company or person have? How can I solve them? And when you come across working with them more collaborative and you have the right questions, which we teach you in our virtual training courses with the right tonality, you are an assassin. You are a sales panther. Now, objection handling, same thing. When you have established trust and credibility because of NEPQ, when they do have an objection, it's very easy to help them overcome it because they feel like you're working with them, right? Okay. Just like that thing I did with, that talked about one of our inner circle clients, Brian, you leaned in, hey, I'm on the same, we're on the same team. I'm on the same team as you. Like mano to mano, I'm here right now, real human being. Off the record, you don't even have to tell anybody. What's really holding you back? Oh my gosh, I'm just scared. I got fear, right? So they have that trust, so they will open up to you, right? So that's how you handle objections. You first have to clarify what the objection means, what's behind, because it means something different to different people. It doesn't necessarily, if they say, I don't have the money, that could mean different things to different people. Does that mean they don't have the money for 2 days? Does that mean they don't have the money at all, like they've got $10 named, does that mean that they don't have the money, but they need to get the money from a different department? It's going to take 2 weeks. It could mean different things to different people. So we have to clarify. We can't assume. Salespeople suck at that. They assume and then they go off a different tangent. The prospect's like, you just lost me. Like, I'm done. So we have to clarify, discuss it, 2 people working together, and diffuse it, asking those type of diffusing questions. We teach all in our virtual training courses. We in fact have a new product that we just launched called the Word for Word Top 50 Objection Obliteration Scripts and Training Program. It's a 4-hour training virtual program, plus all the scripting of the top 50 objections. I even was 52. Nice. I was even nice and put in 2 extra ones as a bonus just because I was feeling it that day. But we even have a product that's only based on objections that we add on to our virtual training. So you do those things, you're going to be very successful.
All right. Awesome, guys. All right. If you guys like this kind of stuff, make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you tell some friends and share this if you're audio only. And if you want to go to salesrevolution.pro, you can see Jeremy going live. You can see all the free training that we do in there around objections, objection prevention, scripting, tonality, all that kind of good stuff. We go live 3 to 4 times a week.
Yeah, best place to start start experiencing some nibbles, some hors d'oeuvres that will give you.
So
give you hors d'oeuvres, a few nibbles before you get into the real stuff. Like Matt said, go to salesrevolution.pro. Facebook group, got about 24,000 people in there or something right now. The thing's growing like crazy. We go live in there 3 to 4 times a week, different trainings, Q&As, all that stuff with me and Matt.
Boom.
And then we even send you a free training done by Matt called the NEPQ 101 mini course. So check your Facebook Messenger right when you join. Somebody on the team will send that over. Matt,
awesome.
Trouble. I know you got to work the rest of the day. I'm done, man. We're
24/7, baby.
We were open 24 hours a day at 7th level. My shift is over. Now it's Matt's turn in Australia.
I take it. I take it with pride. See you, brother. Have a good one.
Hey guys, if you enjoy these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.